For 2 years now, two Canadian men, often referred to as the two Michaels, have been under detention inside of China. And what's significant about this is certain facts that are being left out by the Western media, by the Canadian government itself, when attempting to portray the situation, why the two Michaels have been arrested, and what exactly is going on. The two men are Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, both arrested in China in December of 2018. They were detained under state secrets laws. On August 11th of this year, Michael Kovrig was convicted by a Chinese court, essentially for espionage. They accused him of having taken pictures in sensitive areas, including military equipment, and then sending those images to people outside of China, even one of those people being Michael Spavor. According to a source quoted by the Canada Files, between 2017 and 2018, Kovrig entered China under the guise of a businessman and false pretext of commerce. Using this false identity, Kovrig gathered a large amount of information related to China's national security and wrote analytical reports to be sent to the International Crisis Group. The problem here is the International Crisis Group, which is an NGO, does not have permission in order to operate inside of China. Now, this is a very key, important fact that is being covered up by the Western media and deliberately ignored by the Canadian government. The NGO must have the permission of the Chinese government in order to operate inside of the country, which they did not have. Why? Because the ICG appears to be a CIA front used in several countries around the world. If they were a legitimate NGO, why hide their presence from the Chinese government? Why operate illegally if they're doing nothing wrong? The ICG has a long history of publishing U.S. intervention in countries. They push for the U.S. to interfere in Syria, whitewashing the crimes of so-called moderate rebels. They played a key role in facilitating the NATO intervention in Yugoslavia, as well as the U.S.-led invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. Even more recently, the ICG has sought to destabilize Ethiopia by supporting the secessionist Tigray People's Liberation Force in Ethiopia, which has been backed by the West since the early 1990s. So, what does this have to do with the two Michaels? The arrests are often seen as retaliation for the Canadian government's capture of Wang Mengzhou. She is wanted in the U.S. for violating U.S. sanctions upon Iran. In her capacity as the Huawei CFO, she was passing through Canada while doing business. She has been under house arrest since December 2018. Canadian authorities have arrested her on behalf of the United States government. The problem is, what she was doing was not illegal inside of Canada. The U.S. placed certain sanctions on Iran, which were not recognized by any international body, including the United Nations. These are merely sanctions that the U.S. wants to enforce upon them. So Canada, not being a part of the U.S. government, arrested Wang Mengzhou on these charges, even though they're very, very sparse at the most. A lot of this has to do with delivering cell phone service to Iran and helping to develop 5G infrastructure, as many countries around the world are receiving from Huawei. There seems to be no real basis in Canadian law for arresting her and handing her over to the U.S. for something that is not even illegal in Canada. It's important to note that there are sanctions against Iran that Canada is obligated to follow, those handed down by the United Nations Security Council and other international regulatory bodies. These specific sanctions are only coming from the United States itself. It seems very likely this is the case. However, there's real espionage going on with the Michaels. One of the places where they were found and one of the places that they were arrested was near the border between the DPRK and China. That is a very sensitive area for both the DPRK and the Chinese government. Militarily, it's also very sensitive as well. Now, this is most probably because there is a large amount of illegal trade going on between the two countries in violation of U.S. sanctions. This is something that was probably being spied upon by both the men, along with any military capacities between the two countries. So this is a very highly sensitive area that both of them were sticking their nose around and collecting information on, and then writing up reports and sending them to foreign entities. So you can imagine why all of this is very suspicious. But again, these are part of the more facts that are not being given to the West. It's not being broadcast in the imperialist countries. These facts are being deliberately left out in order to paint both Michaels as being innocent victims of some evil totalitarian state. So it's very important to understand this context. For now, it seems relations between Canada and China are going to be very difficult in the near future over this very serious issue, one that will probably not be resolved for some time. But what's important here is to keep in mind certain facts that are deliberately being left out by the Western media deliberately in order to paint this whole situation as something that it is not. And that's what people need to keep in mind, and that is what needs to be spread out. Reporting from Niagara Falls, Jason Unruhe, MRN. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.